Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick, and this is Super Simple Security Principles, where we talk about digital security principles that are easy to understand no matter your skill level. We are part of the I Hate Passwords Digital Self-Defense Academy, or IHP Academy for short.
Why do I want the 2FAS app? I don't based off the name, but you're going to convince me why I do. What is Google Authenticator? Why does Makani trust the 2FAS app? Do I need 2FAS if I have a password manager? All right, there you have it. Those are some of the questions we're going to be talking about in today's show. And we are talking about, this is our tool episode. We talk about some of the cool tools that you might want to use. And today it's going to be 2FAS. With us as always, our master guardian, Makani. Woo! How you doing, bud?
Hey, good. I think we got to change the pronunciation because I'm with you. That's super awkward. So we can just call it like too fast. Too fast. What do you think?
I like it. I like it because
I don't know what the
so
official
awkward.
pronunciation is, but
Too fast.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's a fun one, and enjoy saying that because you're going to be saying it quite often. I understand it's got a cool long name, two-factor authentication service, but like, really? Couldn't have come up with a cool, catchy name?
Well, some of us are less creative about their names. I struggle with names a bit myself, trying to, but yeah.
All right, dude, let's jump into it. Why do I want this app? I have it.
Yeah, so we'll get to answering that question, but we're going to give a little bit of background before, and all of these, so with the questions today, I won't necessarily answer them all in order. We'll get them all answered and make sure you double check me by the time we get to the end, but I won't necessarily follow them in order because with this one, I want to start out by just reminding, like sometimes we have other episodes that we build on.
Yep.
And this one is very, very true. And sometimes I like to just recap and say, okay, that's fine. This one's a little bit different because it's a little more technical and with its topic with the time-based one-time passwords that we talked about in episode 28.
Ooh, that's right. A good review would be nice right about now.
Right. So we're going to do a quick review here, but it is one that, again, I would say go back and listen to episode 28 if you haven't, because it's technical.
Okay.
And so, but the time-based one-time passwords, or TOTP, it's my most used form of two-factor authentication. And in that episode, I mentioned that in order to use it, you need an app. And so today we're talking about the app that I personally use and recommend for TOTP. Actually, there's two that I use. And we'll get to that as well. But the main one I want to focus on today is too fast.
Too fast.
Okay. So, any other geek speak that we've brought up yet that we need to clarify before we move on?
I think that's about it. I mean, everybody should be clear with two-factor authentication by now, right?
I'll say right. We've talked about that quite a few times on the podcast, so hopefully that'll be good.
Second way of verifying.
Yeah, right. If you're right, if to help secure your account, adds a second layer of security after passwords. Yep. So I want to talk about a little bit of name confusion, and not the weirdness of the Too Fast name itself, but Too Fast and other apps like it that generate these one-time or time-based one-time passwords. They have come to be known as Authenticator apps.
Okay.
Authenticator apps. And there are a ton of different ones. And most of them can do the basic job of an Authenticator app just fine. But some places don't recognize or acknowledge this fact. In fact, it just happened with my daughter today. She was signing up for a college class, and they were pushing Microsoft Authenticator. And there was another option, but you had to kind of look. And in general, this happens with Microsoft Authenticator and also happens very much with Google Authenticator. So if you go to add two-factor authentication to your Gmail account, for example, they will suggest that you use Google Authenticator. So that's the answer to one of those questions. Google Authenticator is an authenticator app just like two-factor. Right. And despite what, the bias towards Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator, most authenticator apps, including, of course, two-fast, will do the same job just fine.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
But sometimes in the settings, it's like saying the Google Authenticator app when it really means any authenticator app. That's kind of how I'd recap that whole name confusion that I'm trying to prepare you for when you go to use it.
Okay.
So now let's talk about why I trust and use two-fast.
Right.
One of the really nice things about this particular tool analysis is that it's really small. The app just doesn't have a long list of features, and that's intentional. It does one really important thing well, and that's it.
Perfect. So it's its function. This is what it was built to do.
Yep, exactly. Well, and they didn't go crazy with all sorts of feature creep. There are a couple little ancillary features that are optional or whatever, but I really am happy with the scope of what they did. And that's not necessarily a reason to trust them exactly, although I do call it good design, but it made my job easy to really look at it all.
Yeah.
But the first one, actually, and I like to kind of do different reasons when I can. And so this is a little bit of a different reason. With some apps I use, I don't always remember where I first heard about them if I just searched or whatever. But with two-fast, I know exactly because it was on my favorite security podcast that I know I've talked to you about called Security Now.
Yeah.
And now I don't bring that up to necessarily recommend to our listeners because, as you know, it's a little more computer geeky than will probably appeal to most of our listeners, right?
Right. Right.
But I thought it was interesting to share that because I'm constantly listening and learning too, right? Especially with technology, there's never, you stop learning and that's when things go wrong if you're a technology or security expert. And the Security Now podcast, anyway, is one of my main sources of learning. And one of the guys on the podcast, Leo Lepore, he recommends two-fast. So I decided to take a look for myself, and I agreed with his analysis, and I've been using it ever since. So that's my first reason.
Excellent. Okay.
It's always good, even us, nice to have other people to listen to and trust and learn from.
Absolutely.
The second reason is that two-fast is open source. Now, I don't think we've ever really explained on the podcast what open source means, right? You remember? I don't think we have.
I was going to say.
Nope. Right, we need to break this one down. Okay.
We need to break this one down.
Yeah.
Open source.
So we start with the words, right? Source. That's just referring to the source code, which means everything that is used to make the app. And the open part means that it's available to the public because there's also a phrase closed source, which means it's private. So for an app like two-fast to be open source means that any software developer can access the publicly available source code for the app and build it themselves. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
So if it's open, if I were able, I could add to it.
Exactly. Yes. Right. You can add to it. You can change it. And right. And that's really the most important part is not only can you make it, but you can see everything about what it does, how it does it. Like you can verify for yourself
Oh,
how it,
cool.
if
Okay.
if it's holding true to its claims. I mean, obviously you have to be knowledgeable enough to look at all the source code, right? But it is there and available.
But for those that have that knowledge, I'm sure there's probably reviews on, hey, look, this is legit. We've looked into the right.
Yeah, well, there are. Yeah, and it
Okay.
depends on the size of the project, and a lot of
Right.
times, even for open source ones, they might pay for a security audit because, I mean, source code is big and it takes a lot of time to really look closely, which is part of the reason why open source isn't just a total magic bullet. It doesn't mean, okay, if it's open source, it's 100% trustworthy because there still could
Right.
be things hidden in there that aren't. They can be discovered, but it still takes work.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
But I like open source. Generally, I think it's a great feature. It has a lot of advantages, and some people go the other direction, or not the other direction, but like some privacy and security experts consider it being open source absolutely mandatory for trustworthiness. And I don't go that far. I think there are alternatives and valid reasons for considering those alternatives in certain cases, but that's kind of a bigger topic. Um, Too Fast is open source, and I think it's a great thing.
Okay. Enough said, right?
Yeah. Third reason, and this is a simple one, but there's no account creation. And I know that's one you'll appreciate. And it's so rare these days to be able to do anything without an account.
Right. Hallelujah. Look, I might not like their name, but they were super slick to use and to use. And the fact that I don't have to create an account, I'm applauding you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, there's, a lot of cases there's good reason for it, but it's still a breath of fresh air. So,
Right.
final reason. And this one, I'm actually going to list a bunch of like tiny reasons all together and then kind of explain why they go together, but without going into detail. So, they have an active Discord community. They have a detailed About Us page with names, bios, everything. They have comprehensive documentation, which is extremely rare. A beautiful website, a strong social media presence. They even have a press kit. The company, they've been around for 10 years and it's still actively developed, but kind of like we talked about before, they're not adding a bunch of new features. They're just keeping up with the changes in technology so it doesn't break, it keeps working. It's got strong ratings in the app stores with a large number of downloads. And the way I put all those together is it just screams transparency, accountability, visibility, which are
I love it.
all powerful elements of trustworthiness, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So now that we've covered the trust aspect, I want to give a warning. And this one I know will not come as any surprise to you and hopefully not to our listeners either, but it's just something worth repeating. We're talking about enabling two-factor authentication using the 2FAS app. So my warning is remember to back up because anytime you're using two-factor authentication, you can get locked out of your account. And so what I mean by back up is once you start using 2FAS with a particular account like your email account or your Facebook account or whatever, there's going to be a little bit of data that you enter those accounts into the 2FAS app.
Yeah.
And so then, for example, if your phone died and you didn't have your phone backed up or the data inside the 2FAS app backed up, then you could potentially get locked out of that account. Yeah, and these days most accounts err on the side of you being able to recover, but anyway, it's one layer you want to have in place. And one of the other reasons I like 2FAS app is they make the backup really easily. They have two easy options. One really easy option, but one is you can export it to a file and then use whatever regular file backup system you have, which I know a lot of people don't. We will definitely be covering that as well. But even easier, you can just check a little checkbox to back it up to, if you're on an iPhone, to your iCloud account, or on Android to your Google Drive account, which for most people with their phones, they're just going to have one of those by virtue of using the phones. And so it's really quick and easy.
Okay.
But so just
That's
a reminder.
good news. We appreciate quick and easy.
Yeah, exactly. So now the last thing I want to talk about before we do our call to action is password managers.
Yes.
And so this is what I was referencing earlier, where there's two, the other app that can generate these same codes that 2FAS can do is most password managers. And definitely 1Password can.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, right, you might be wondering then, okay, I have 1Password, do I need 2FAS as well? And you don't absolutely need it, but you may want it. And I do actually use it. I use both 1Password to generate the codes, the one-time password, but I also use 2FAS. And we'll get into all the details of that. But the one case that just will be very obvious and clear is I use 2FAS as the two-factor authentication for 1Password, right? To actually add a layer of security to unlocking my password manager itself. Obviously, you couldn't put that in itself, right? You got to have something else. Does that make sense?
Right. Makes total sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I have them both.
Yeah. Oh, did you already install 2FAS? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, that's right. I do. I had forgotten. Right. We set you up that long ago. I had totally forgotten. Yeah. So yeah, I don't use it a ton. Like I have some in 2FAS and I have some in 1Password, and the strategies, it can vary. That doesn't have to be the same for everybody. And that's something we'll talk about more later. But I just wanted to make sure we talked about password manager. And I think that answers all of our questions now, right?
I think so.
Okay. So my call to action then.
Yeah,
sorry,
I
you
was going
want
to say,
recap?
I was just looking through our questions again, and just going, why do I want the 2FAS app? And the reality is you want that for that extra layer of security that it creates. And that's what we get. And that's why I have it. Again, it's certain accounts that I use it for. Again, but I would basically say having this option is probably one that you really want to add to your security layer, your security blanket, as you layer up. But that said, there's plenty of places to start. We know that. This is a great tool. Really good tool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm glad you brought that up, because really, right, that's a good reminder. We talked a lot about that in 28, because that was all about like securing your accounts and which accounts to use on all those things. And so this is kind of follow up to help you actually be able to take action on that. Yep. But it's definitely an important reminder, because, yeah, and there are a lot of kind of early steps, but adding two-factor authentication is one of the biggest bangs for your buck that you can get if the particular security you're looking for is protecting your online accounts, which is, for most people, it's a really, really good place to start. So,
yeah.
The call to action then, we ready for that?
Let's hear it. It's that we've reached that time of show. Yeah. Our call to action time.
Yeah.
Shout out to a certain listener. He knows who he is. He loves this part of our show.
That's what I know when you said that. That's totally what I was thinking of. It's funny. Hey, love to be known for that sort of thing, so it's good. Pretty simple. Install the 2Pass app, and then my thought to just get started is pick one account to set up with it, and then when you get it done, I'd like to, and I'm going to probably do this more as we go on, is come share your victory with us on the forum. How did it go? And of course, if you have any trouble as well, we always are inviting that. But I'm also just curious to hear people and share their victories. I love sharing victories. I think it's an awesome thing to do.
I agree. I love it, man. That's a good call to action. Look, it's not terribly difficult call to action. It's one I've done. Again, with this, I'm a non-techie, so let me put this out there. I'm a non-techie. I was able to do this with very, very little effort. This was pretty simple. Again, as Makani mentioned, you put in a little bit of data, not a lot, and yeah, you're good to go, and you've got that second layer of security. So something I'd recommend. But
absolutely,
there you go.
Thank you.
I love
it. Appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, that's our show.
Okay, that's our super simple show today. If you're not a member of the IHP Academy already, please come join us for free. Stop searching the whole internet for answers and never knowing who to trust. Ask us instead. We made it super simple to find us, and it only takes 2 minutes to sign up. Just visit helpmegetsafe.com. Enter your name and your email. You're in. You can also find the link in our show notes. Thank you for joining us, and make it a great day. Bye-bye.